I'm wondering how many juniors are in the room? Sophomores. All right, and no seniors yet, but that's okay. It is useful to know who's in the room. I'm Kate Dalinger. I work in career education with people at Wellesley, both students and alumni, applying for scholarships and fellowships, basically funding to do a wide array of purposeful activities. I'm joined here by
Caitlin Roberts-Donovan. I'm the program manager for fellowships, and I work with Kate, and I also do advising with her.
Fantastic. I've actually been doing advising on scholarships for graduate study for more than a decade. I got into it because I myself did my graduate work abroad, and am living proof that it is possible to get funding to do graduate work without winning one of the major awards, without having the world's highest GPA, and without doing the most practical subject. I persuaded people to fund me to study dark age reading practices at the University of Cambridge. If that is possible, anything is possible. So be brave, be bold. Don't let anybody turn you off trying to pursue your aims and ambitions until you've had several runs at it and you've tried every door, every window, you've gone around the back, you've brought a ladder. Until everything fails, don't give up. Because there are, in fact, more scholarships out there than you might think. It pays to explore options and plan ahead, just as you are all doing, which is fantastic. If you wait until you have been accepted into a graduate program to look for funding, so if you find out, say, a year from now or 3 years from now or whatever, that you've just gotten into the most amazing graduate program and it's going to start in the fall, the spring before is actually a little late to be starting to find things to help you fund the following academic year. So planning ahead is really crucial. So well done, all of you. Who's eligible and for what kinds of study and where, what are their scholarships to do? Broadly speaking, everyone and everything is an option. Some scholarships are for study at particular universities or in particular countries, while others are not restricted. Some are only for Wellesley students and graduates, while others are not. Some have restrictions on age or country of citizenship or field of study, while others don't. Some you need to apply for before you even apply to graduate or professional school, and others you can apply for while you're in a graduate or professional program. So lots of options out there. What kinds of things do they look like? Well, perhaps one of the most famous of all scholarships for graduate study is the Rhodes for Graduate Study at Oxford. It is perhaps one of the best known, but certainly not the only way to get to Oxford and do graduate study. Did you know that citizens of more than 64 countries were already eligible for the Rhodes, and as of this past year, citizens of any country are eligible for the Rhodes? Not even the Rhodes, as competitive and prestigious as it is, requires a 4.0. Did you know that the minimum GPA for the global Rhodes is just 3.7, which I know is a huge ask at Wellesley, but still, not a 4.0. Also note that the new warden, that is the head of the whole Rhodes Scholarship, is for the first time ever a woman. She was among the first women named as Rhodes Scholars in the 1970s, which is just really exciting. She's already shaken things up in exciting ways, so now is a good time to be looking at the Rhodes. As a proud Cambridge alumna, I cannot mention the Rhodes in Oxford without mentioning Cambridge and one of the best known scholarships for graduate study there, the Gates Cambridge. Which is open to citizens of any country and supports any graduate degree offered at Cambridge. Actually, I should say citizens of any country other than the UK, but Brits have other options for doing graduate work at Cambridge. If, on the other hand, you're less interested in the British Isles and more, say, Ireland, 2 awards of note for American applicants interested in earning their master's degrees in Ireland are the newly established Hillary Rodham Clinton Award for Peace and Reconciliation at Queen's Belfast, which is a fabulous, fabulous place anywhere in the world to study peace and reconciliation. And then there's the Mitchell Scholarship, won in 2003 by a Wellesley alumna, Jana Kaiser, who was, class of 2000. So she won as an alumna. So this is the other thing. There are lots of things for which you can apply as a graduating senior, but if that's not the right time to apply for grad school, that's okay. You still have lots of other options. That's part of why I brought handouts about scholarship resources, fellowship resources for alums. And there are lots and lots of other scholarships for graduate study in the UK and Ireland, including the Marshall, another one for Americans, and that supports graduate degrees at any British university. They want you to go wherever's best for what you want to do. So unlike something like the Rhodes, which is only for Oxford, you know, where's the right program for what you want to do? And again, I'm living proof that it's possible to win funding for graduate study without winning one of the big name scholarships. I had a patchwork of smaller awards that allowed me to do the graduate work I really was passionately interested in doing at one of the best places in the whole world to do that. And of course, it's a big world out there. There are lots of places to study. Wellesley's own Susan Rappaport Knappel 52 Scholarship for Foreign Study goes to a graduating senior at Wellesley every year and provides full funding for a year of graduate study anywhere outside the US, and if you are an international student at Wellesley and you win it, outside your home country too. It has in recent years been won by international students as well as by Americans. And there are lots of other options out there. Maybe you're interested in crossing the channel. For example, there is a scholarship available to graduating seniors at Wellesley, Americans, the Michel de Viville, to go to Sciences Po. Given that economics and political science are such popular majors here, it is not surprising there's a lot of interest in graduate work at Sciences Po here at Wellesley. You can apply as a senior for this full scholarship, the de Viville. If you're not a US citizen, you have lots of options too. Sciences Po offers a wide array of other awards to French, European, non-European students, and any student who has real financial need. A graduating senior just won one of their really prestigious awards for international students to do a master's degree at Sciences Po, which is really exciting. Maybe a whole other region of the world makes more sense for you. The Schwartzman Scholars Program is a fully funded master's degree taught at Tsinghua University in Beijing. It also offers professional placements, mentorship, and an amazing network. It's open to citizens of any country and in any field. Pictured here is a member of the inaugural class of Schwartzman Scholars, Ceviche Restrepo Alvarez, 16, who is an international student here at Wellesley and in Beijing. Another Wellesley alumna, Deborah Tien, 12, is currently in Beijing now as part of the third class of Schwartzman Scholars. Rising Wellesley seniors and current seniors and graduates from mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan who are interested in applying for the Schwartzman need to do so by May 31st, which is one reason why I'm out there beating the drum trying to get people to think about postgraduate scholarships now. Because May 31st, why such a crazy early deadline? That aligns with the Chinese graduate school application cycle. Citizens of other countries have until September to apply for the Schwartzman Scholars Program. Nevertheless, planning ahead is good. Alternatively, there is the Yanqing Academy at Peking University, affectionately known as Beida. Again, one of the most prestigious and oldest universities in China. We have a Yanqing Academy scholar studying there right now, Yerin Chu, who graduated last spring. She's from Korea and is interested in international relations. She's a really interesting person and having a fascinating time in Beijing now. There are other scholarships offered by the Chinese government open to citizens of any country except China, and they also have scholarships for their own citizens as well. We have a scholarship for which Wellesley may nominate seniors each winter. Various other governments are also keen to get international students to pursue graduate study in their countries, rather like the US bringing folks here for graduate study via the Fulbright. Some of the more common countries that offer scholarships include Canada, Germany. The DAAD has a huge array of awards available, and lots of other possibilities. Where might you like to do your graduate work? Let me help you search for options. There are literally thousands of them out there. We couldn't list all of them on our website or in this presentation if we wanted to. Okay, why am I trying to send you abroad? I'm not. Maybe graduate study in the US makes more sense for you. And one wonderful option are the Wellesley College Graduate Fellowships, open to any Wellesley senior or graduate to support any graduate or professional degree in the US or abroad. Aren't you glad chemistry labs at Wellesley don't look like that anymore? Applications are typically due for the Wellesley College Graduate Fellowships via a single common app. So you can apply for some 25 different awards with one application, one set of letters, one statement, one everything. and be in the running for up to 25 different things. There are all sorts of other scholarships for study in the US, whether or not you're an American citizen. Why limit your chances of getting funded by just applying to the Wellesley College Graduate Fellowships? Apply for options beyond Wellesley too. One, again, very well-known option is the brand new Hennessy Scholars program at Stanford University. It offers full funding for any graduate or professional degree offered at Stanford. It's open to citizens of any country interested in any field. They're really trying to think creatively about finding the best and brightest students. Of 49 scholars named to the inaugural class last year, 57% are women, including some 2/3 of those named for doctorates in engineering. All right. 63% of scholars hold non-US passports from 19 different countries, and 12% of the US scholars named are first-gen students. So if you're thinking about there must be a platonic ideal of a scholar that they're looking for, they're not, actually. They're looking for a wide array of bright, talented, amazing folks. And that's true of most scholarships and fellowships. Other options include the National Science Foundation, which funds graduate work in the social sciences as well as in STEM fields. 3 Wellesley graduates won NSFs last year for economics, for example. I tend to think of things like biology and physics for NSF, but it does include also economics and linguistics and a whole array of cool things. Okay, it's not actually a race judged in seconds. It's a long haul thing, which is part of why I'm so thrilled to see all of you here so early and planning ahead. Some scholarships require application as early as fall of junior year. Sophomores take note. For example, the Beinecke, which supports graduate and professional degrees in the arts, humanities, and social sciences. Why apply in the fall of your junior year for this? If you win it, you have a substantial scholarship in your pocket when you're getting ready to apply for graduate schools. Plus, they offer funding for the cost of applying for graduate programs. It's an extraordinary opportunity, and you don't have to go straight to grad school. Serenity Hughes, who won a couple of years ago, is actually working. She graduated in the spring. She's working right now. She's not going straight to grad school, but when she's ready to go to grad school, she has the Beinecke in her pocket already. Emily Moss, this past spring, won the Truman Scholarship for Americans interested in public service careers, which typically aren't very well paid, but if the Truman helps you pay for your graduate degree, that's really helpful. Eligibility for some awards like these are tied to your class year or your date of graduation, as it, for example, is the Marshall Scholarship, which doesn't care how old you are, just when you got your bachelor's degree. Some scholarships have age restrictions while others don't. The devil's in the details. I'm really happy to help people negotiate through all of that. Most graduate scholarships you'd apply for at about the same time as you're applying to graduate school, although sometimes they do have a little bit earlier deadline, like the summer before. The Mitchell that I mentioned for graduate study in Ireland has a campus application deadline in August, which is more than a year than before you'd actually begin graduate study in Ireland. Some scholarships you can also or still apply for once you're in, like the Soros fellowships for new Americans, which are on the screen right now, or like the Wellesley College graduate fellowships. But again, why limit your chances unnecessarily? By planning ahead and applying for things as you're applying to grad school, you maximize your chances of getting funding. The other thing is applying for fellowships is an iterative process. It's hard to put your heart out there, it takes time, but you learn every time you do it. The most successful person you can think of has not won everything they've applied for, whether jobs or scholarships or getting into college or anything else you can think of. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you build your skills. And so, for example, with something like the Soros, I just was working with an alumna who has now been a finalist twice for the Soros. Keep your fingers crossed, that second time's the charm. You learn valuable lessons by going through this. Fit is more important than anything else when you're trying to find the right scholarships. Good grades are not everything. You could have a 4.0 and not be a good fit for a particular award. Or you could have a lower cumulative GPA, but other qualifications and a really strong feasible proposal and get a scholarship. So please don't rule yourself out without coming to talk to me. I promise I will always be honest. Sometimes whether or not you want me to. All right, all kinds of huge options out there. It's a big world. I mentioned there are thousands of scholarships and fellowships. How the heck do I navigate my way among all of those? The good news is the first thing to figure out is whether or not you think graduate or professional school might be the right choice for you. And if so, where and when. Figuring this out definitely requires some reflection on your part. You want to be thinking about what's the work you might want to do in the world. Is there a problem or need you might like to tackle? What skills or experiences or qualifications would you need to be able to do that work or tackle that problem or need? And might a graduate or professional degree be something that's required to help you do that? Big, awful questions. There are all kinds of folks here to help. Caitlin and I are part of a much larger team in career education, and there are college career mentors. Every single one of you in this room has a college career mentors. Alumnae have the alumni advancement team. And then there are the fabulous career community advisors who have expertise in particular fields. You can check out the career education website and find out more about, for example, careers in technology, engineering, and the physical sciences, or arts, communication, and media, or health professions, or social impact. Explore as many of those options as make sense. And do bear in mind that these folks can not only help you land an internship or a job, but think about career strategy. If this is the kind of field I want to go into, and this is the kind of work that I hope to do in the future, what are the steps to get me there? You can have a strategic conversation with one of my fabulous colleagues about that. They love those conversations. Not that they're not happy to help you put together a beautiful application for an internship, but they love the strategy conversations too. Also on the career education website, we have a ton of resources to help you think about grad school. This is just the sort of intro, but there's a whole slew of other stuff that gives you step-by-step advice about considering, applying for, and funding graduate and professional study. Why not start with the upcoming webinar on applying to grad school offered on April 2nd, 2019 at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't make it, don't worry, it'll be recorded and available for future reference. There are all kinds of people that you can talk to in career education, where I mentioned you can find a lot of resources on our website. You can explore careers, talk to various people. Appointments are available year-round. We're here all summer. We're here much of various breaks. We are glad to do advising via telephone and video chat as well as in person. You don't actually have to be here to bend somebody's ear, and sometimes it's easier when you're not in the middle of classes and lab and practice and clubs and work and to catch your breath and have a conversation with somebody. Also, if you're thinking about graduate or professional school, take advantage of all kinds of other resources that you have. If you're thinking about graduate school, you gotta go talk to professors. There's no better source of advice about graduate study in your field than professors in that field. You can swing by office hours while you're all on campus together and have a conversation. They might be able to give you good advice about, you know what, if I think eventually I want to go to grad school in this field, like what are some of the classes I should be thinking about taking before I graduate? What about a senior thesis? If grad school is looking more imminent, you want to talk to them about who's doing really interesting work in the field. And again, research supervisors, whether it's a formal PI or somebody for whom you are a research assistant, can offer really valuable insight into these things too. You don't have to say, well, where should I go to grad school? You can say, you know, I'm thinking about grad school, here are some of the things, would you be willing to listen to some pros and cons? Or I'm looking at this program, does this seem to you like a good fit? As you're thinking about other careers and the kind of work that you may want to be, supervisors from past internships, folks who are working in the field you think you might want to go into, will have really good advice to share. And various of these people you may need to come back to ask them to write letters of reference. The more you involve them in the decision-making process, the more they learn about why you're thinking about applying to graduate or professional school, the more they've helped you choose what seems like exactly the right program to you, the easier it will be for them to write strong, specific, beautiful letters so that they can say, not only Caitlin did really good work in my class, my lab, as my summer intern, but as an expert in the field who's talked to her about what she's proposing to do, let me tell you why I think this is a really good idea. That's a different letter, and they can't do that if you don't have a good conversation. What other professional mentors do you have? As you're exploring graduate and professional programs, why not talk to some people who are doing some of those programs and see what they think? A lot of Wellesley grads go on to graduate and professional school. Have you tried the Hive for networking and reaching out to folks? If they're in the Hive, they have already volunteered to talk with people about, say, careers and grad school and so on and so forth. So when you contact them, you're not even sending a cold email, it's a really warm email. I heard recent statistics that typically if students reach out via LinkedIn to people for informational interviews, you have to email like 10 people to get maybe one response. With the Hive, it's more like send out 2 and you're guaranteed at least 1 response. So it's totally worth doing that. And then think creatively about friends and family. You never know what people might do or what their spouse or their parent or their cousin does. People have all kinds of unexpected areas of expertise. Take advantage of that. Sometimes they can make really interesting connections or offer really helpful reality checks. Good things to do. If graduate or professional studies starting to sound like it's the right thing for you, the next question is, where's the best place to do that? What are you really passionately interested in? I recently heard Anne Valenchik say that, oh gosh, nobody should go to grad school unless they are passionately interested. There's this itch that you're not going to be satisfied if you don't get an answer to it. And she is not an airy-fairy. She's an economist. She's very practical, right? And so I would definitely agree with her there. But the other thing too, especially if you're thinking about your future career, thinking about where are the best programs to help you do that. Where's the networking that's going to help you start out on your career? Who's doing the most interesting work? Where's the best preparation? The other thing, thinking about preparation, is that while a liberal arts undergraduate degree program encourages exploration, graduate school, on the other hand, is not generally a chance to explore a whole new field, but rather to dig deeper into a field that you've at least begun to explore as an undergraduate. Graduate programs want to know that you have the appropriate academic foundation on which to build through graduate study in that field. So they'll be looking for relevant coursework and skills, theoretical frameworks, research experience, etc. So you want to read the fine print for any graduate degree course you're considering, paying particular attention to entry requirements. Some generally more interdisciplinary courses are looking for people with a wide array of backgrounds and could be a way to transition from one field to another. But for the most part, switching subjects at the graduate level can be difficult. Just a caveat. For you, I want you to be as happy doing graduate or professional study as I was doing my eccentric little early medieval history research at Cambridge. I don't care if you're doing an MBA and very practically oriented or whatever, like I want this to be the right fit for you so that it will be interesting and satisfying and actually help you get where you want to go in the longer term. The other thing is that finding the right fit makes it much more likely that you'll get funding to do it. You're asking a committee, any committee for which you're applying for scholarships, to fund your education, showing them that you'd be a good return on investment, that this program would be a good return on their investment makes sense. So it makes sense to start by finding that right fit for yourself. Sometimes the best program for what you want to do isn't at the big name place. Everyone's heard of Oxford, for example. But if what you really want to do is creative writing, folks in the field know that the University of East Anglia, I don't care if you've never heard of UEA, have far and away the strongest program in creative writing in the UK. So the good news is, before you get completely overwhelmed by all those various scholarships to go and study anywhere in the world, any field, etc., the place to start is, what do you want to study where? Where makes sense for you? And then you can try to narrow the field, and I can help you narrow the field for scholarships that will help you get where you want to go. But if you want to just see what the options are and find out more than I've said today, Fellowships and Scholarships on the Career Education website offers a whole series of resources to help you explore Fellowships and Scholarships for graduate study. This resource here has my more than a decade's worth of like how and when to search for scholarships, what do the timelines look like. It's boiled down into one really long page. It's a great place to start. But there are tons of other options there. Let's see. If you go to the deadline section of the Career Education website, did you know if you click fellowship, it reveals search filters, including research grad school, including undergraduate. So if you want undergraduate research, you could try research grad school and undergraduate and see what turns up on both lists. If you're an international student at Wellesley, convinced there are no scholarships and fellowships for you, I'm here to tell you it's a myth. There's a whole filter for international students. If you click that button, it should only show things for which international students and alums are eligible. Have some fun out there. A lot of the things that are listed on our website, where I tell you, for example, how to apply for the Mitchell Scholarship through Wellesley, they're often funded by the US government. And American colleges and universities are willing to do a campus nomination process, whereas universities abroad frequently are not willing to do that. So if there's no campus process, I don't have to tell you how to apply through Wellesley for it, so it may or may not appear under some of the other lists on our website. But if we think it's of interest to Wellesley folks, we'll put it in the deadline section. Again, we couldn't possibly list all of the thousands and thousands of scholarships and fellowships out there, but what we're trying to do is give you as much good resources as possible. If you can't find what you're looking for, come talk. One of the things to think about as you're exploring fellowships, graduate and professional programs and scholarships to get there, it's worth thinking about whether or not there are other ways to get where you want to go, or intermediate steps that might make sense for you. Going straight into a graduate or professional degree program, as tempting as it may sound, may not be the right way to go for lots of reasons. Do you need time off to figure things out? Or time to work on language skills or gain research experience or other kinds of field or professional experiences? Some programs require, or at least strongly prefer, prior work experience. For example, an MBA or something like a Master's in International Development Studies. If you need something else first, consider the different ways to gain the skills and experience you need, perhaps to test the water and see whether or not taking the plunge for graduate or professional degree study is right for you. There are all kinds of internships and jobs that might help you explore a field or gain skills. At the same time, you might consider applying for a fellowship to help you gain skills or experience. A Watson traveling fellowship might allow you to pursue a long-held interest you couldn't pursue by any other means. Did you know that Julie Taymor got her start as a Watson before she did all those amazing puppets on stage for The Lion King? How about a Fulbright study grant or a chance to teach English in China through the Wellesley Yenching Graduate Fellowships? Or how about a service fellowship like the IJC Community Fellowships before law school, or Princeton in Latin America, or Carnegie Fellowship, or something else entirely? Maybe a terminal master's degree, like the 1 or 2 year master's courses so common in the UK and elsewhere, might be a really good way to test the water of whether or not a PhD might make sense for you, especially if you can win a scholarship to support it. Because broadly speaking, there's more funding for PhDs than there are for master's programs. Again, other things you might want to try out. If you're interested in, say, grad school, it's not a bad idea to get some research experience before you graduate from Wellesley to see whether or not that's something you like. I love spending all day in the archives by myself. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and some folks like research involves field work or lab work or all kinds of cool stuff. Wellesley offers a wide array of summer undergraduate research fellowships and funding. There are also outside research programs. Just this weekend, we had the application deadline from the National Institute of Standards and Technology summer undergraduate research fellowships. You could get a job as a research assistant for a faculty member. You could apply for funding from Wellesley to support a senior thesis or senior project. Things like the Levitt, the deadline's coming up in May for that, the Daniels and the Schiff, etc. And then there are all kinds of opportunities for internships. Taking your time to get things right. My dad taught me to measure twice and cut once. This is not a bad rule to think about when you're thinking about graduate or professional study. If grad school isn't the right next step for you, do something else. trust me, as much as I loved grad school, even at a wonderful place with full funding, it's too much hard work, too much investment of your time and energy to embark on if it's not really what you want or need to be doing to get where you want to go beyond. You could even do something immediately out of college and then later on apply for graduate or professional study, and for the scholarships, they'll still be there. Again, we routinely have alums apply for and win fellowships every year. Lastly, you don't have to go alone. I can help with strategy, Caitlin can, my colleagues in career education, and also to help you decide which scholarships might make the most sense for you to consider. We can also help with tough things like, whom should I ask for letters of reference? For what? How to turn a resume into an academic CV. We can offer feedback on drafts of essays, except for Rhodes' personal statements. And there are all sorts of other folks to whom you can turn as well, both in career education and beyond, including your own academic research and professional mentors. In fact, we have a ringer in the room, a senior. Can I ask you to come up and join me?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yay! Yay! So, who are you and what's your major and what did you apply for?
Yes, hi, my name's Maya. I'm a senior. I'm a double major in classics and political science. I applied for the Marshall, the Pickering, and the Boren.
So do you want to say anything to folks about why you did that or how your thinking about grad school has evolved?
I wasn't honestly thinking about grad school at all, in the sense that I thought I would definitely at least take a year or two off. But then I realized there were just so many great fellowships out there, and once that really forced me to think creatively about what I wanted to do with grad school, I was sort of thinking either like typical law school or just go straight into like a poli-sci program. But really while I was putting together my Marshall application, because that was the earliest of those 3 deadlines, I started to think really critically about all of the possibilities of things that could be done for grad school.
I remember a really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I could do the thing I really secretly want to do. I was like, yeah.
And yeah, I think just chatting with Kate about her experience in grad school, studying how people read in like the Middle Ages was awesome and really like made me think creatively about like the realm of possibilities.
Cool. So, fair warning, I'm going to ask you to ask any questions that you have for Maya and me, but in the meantime, is there anything that you might say to encourage people to take the leap, to make time to do this time-consuming, stressful, put your heart out on a plate kind of process?
I think that's a good way of putting it. It is time-consuming, it is stressful, and you do have to be really vulnerable about it. But I do think it's really helpful in thinking about what you want to do next. I think also, especially as a senior, everything seems to be very short-term focused. I mean, my thought is always, what am I doing right after graduation? So I think thinking about fellowships really forces you to think about what you would want to do in the long term. So it can be a really good experience for thinking about how you can prepare for where you want to go way off in the future.
Fantastic. And by the way, even though, yes, Maya applied for a whole slew of things as a senior, she could reapply for various scholarships and fellowships in future, or she could have decided to wait. Again, there are lots of different options. I hope you will think about reapplying for various things, because I think grad school's in the future sooner or later. Are there things that you wish you'd known a year ago?
I think one thing that was said yesterday that I found really helpful is reframing the way you think about fellowships. So I think if you see it more as a learning process and you see the actual act of writing the essays as the ends, and instead of seeing getting the fellowship as the ends, it can be much more rewarding that way. And then the actual like process of being evaluated or being accepted or rejected means less than just the actual like act of writing and thinking critically about what you want to do next.
Thank you. What would you like to ask? What are you curious about? What made you come here today that maybe we haven't talked about? Or like now that you have somebody who's actually been there, done that recently, what would you like to know? It's okay, if you don't have questions, I do. I can keep going. Any tips about talking to faculty members about grad school or choosing whom to ask for letters?
Do it in advance. I certainly came to the realization I wanted to do grad school late, so don't be scared if you do it kind of late in the process. I certainly was able to have those conversations and still found immense amounts of support. But I think the process of thinking about, say, fellowships that require you to take the GRE or some sort of entrance exams, fellowships that need you to really have specific backgrounds for the grad programs that you're applying to, it's really helpful to think about like the fellowships you want to apply to well in advance. Talk to the faculty members who you plan to get letters of recommendation from. I would say if you're thinking about applying to something that's due like, you know, September-ish, like start doing it now before like the end of the semester, just so that you have time to think about what you're good at, what you can sell yourself, what you can sell, what you're lacking in, what you can improve. Certainly I think just having a conversation as soon as possible is really, really helpful.
And you don't have to say, I'm doing X, can you write a letter for me now? It's like so I'm thinking about grad school, right?
Yeah. And like, faculty members are super excited and willing to have that conversation with you. Even if you show up and you're like, I have no background in this, but I'm kind of thinking about it, they're really willing to engage that conversation. I've definitely done that, where I've had a dream since lunchtime and been like, I would really like to go do this PhD program. And a faculty member or the other has actually sat there and entertained the thought and been like, here's why you'd be good at this. So it can happen, honestly.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the things I was always nervous about going to talk to faculty, even people with whom I had good relationships. And I think if you remember that when you're going and talking to them about grad school, what you're saying is, I've really loved what I've learned with you. I really loved what you've taught me, and I think I might want to try to follow in your footsteps, or at least get more of what you've given me a taste for. That's a lovely compliment. People are really glad to have that conversation. Even if in the end they're like, oh gosh, you know, the academic job market is just crummy, and
yeah.
Or like, you know, even if they have to have some of those tough conversations, they would rather have that conversation with you than not, so don't be shy. And at the very least, you get some fantastic advice, and that helps you figure out what you want to do. And no matter what you do, you're going to have to be asking people for letters of reference. So the more you can have conversations with them beyond, oh gosh, what do I need to do for this assignment, or I don't get that thing, or the exam's coming up, and what do we have to do? Like whatever it is that you otherwise have short-term conversations about. Faculty members like the sort of big picture, expansive conversations too. It's a fun break, and it's not anything that's unusual for them. Other questions? I'm going to keep giving you pauses, otherwise I'll just keep going. Is there something that you wish somebody had told you, or a really helpful piece of advice that somebody gave you along the way that you might like to share?
I think for me, as I was writing fellowship applications, the thing that I came to realize was that my typical style of writing essays doesn't translate well to fellowship applications. In the sense that I'm a very motivated by the deadline type person, so I'll write it the night before and just, it'll be good, it won't be beautiful, but I'm very much that sort of person. And I think fellowship essays, it's hard to do that because they can be so mentally exhausting, simply because of the questions they ask.
Yeah. What do you want to do with your life?
Yeah, exactly. And it's super hard to try and sit down the night before and actually come up with a really coherent and well-written answer to that question. So I would say, even if you're a very motivated by the deadline type person like me, really start looking at them in advance. The other thing is, I think, just realizing how many different requirements there are with some fellowships. When I was applying for the Pickering, I didn't realize that I needed to be taking the GRE like 2 weeks later, so that was a shock, and suddenly I found myself in that position, but you know, it still got done. But I wish I'd known that well in advance. So I think looking at the fellowships, really, really knowing all of the nuances and requirements, even not the obvious ones, that would have been really, really helpful, I think.
Yeah. So hopefully you came this afternoon because you found this to be a useful process.
Yes.
Whether or not things pan out. Any last encouraging thoughts you might want to share with, especially sophomores and juniors who are here today?
I would say go through the process because it can be actually really fun to put yourself out there. It sounds really daunting, and oftentimes the essays, the topics themselves sound just incredibly hard to tackle, and you will have no idea where to start. But I think the mental challenge of having no idea what to write and then putting together something at the end that you're really proud of translates well into a lot of different disciplines. And then the actual act of self-reflection can be really fun and rewarding in a lot of ways. So like I said, the learning process of writing fellowships is oftentimes the best part of going through it. The actual acceptance rejection doesn't matter as much, but the writing process is really rewarding and really fun.
Fantastic. And I would say too, again, this is transferable skills. Even if you never apply for another scholarship or fellowship again, you will apply for jobs. You may well apply for graduate or professional school. The practice that Maya was just talking about absolutely transfers to those experiences and gives you really powerful forward momentum in a million different ways. So thank you for planning ahead. Thank you very much, Maya, for coming this afternoon. Be bold, be brave, try for things, and please come talk. Thanks for being here this afternoon.